Hey guys, Wyloch here. This week we're going to make a Necron tomb. This was inspired by Marcus Mueller. I did a YouTube search for Necron tomb world terrain and his was one of the first search results. Very cool little video with a lot of ideas packed into it. So here's my interpretation on his building. Okay, so I started with 1-inch thick extruded polystyrene, also known as home insulation, available at any home improvement store. Cut a rectangle that is 16 by 12 inches. And then I cut out 2 notches, as you see in this diagram. I used my Proxen hot wire table to cut those out, but it can be done with a knife if the blade is fresh and you go slowly. Now I wanted each tier to be a certain thickness, and it's not 1 inch. I wanted them taller than that, so a standard humanoid or infantry couldn't see over the first floor. I wanted it to be line of sight blocking. So I needed to increase the thickness, and to do that I cut slabs of double corrugated cardboard and hot glued them on. Notice the hole I cut here. Originally I was thinking about doing a lighted feature, but later I called it off. Anyway, I then cut a big piece of foam board and removed the notches, same as before, and attached this with white PVA glue, just Elmer's. So you could just use a thicker foam from the start, but I didn't have that, and so I just made do. Then I hot glued on some more foam blocks to build the second floor. Here's the diagram for it. And again, cover it with double corrugated cardboard and a single solid piece of foam board. Third floor, exact same thing, and here's the diagram for it. Now I'm going to use chipboard. This is Graphics Medium chipboard, my favorite stuff. Check the link in the description below. Anyways, we're going to work around the building, cutting pieces to cover all the vertical surfaces. Now you should always strive to use a large piece wherever possible to minimize seams. Again with chipboard, start cutting some square and rectangular shapes and hot glue them on the side. Mix it up, big ones, small ones, L-shaped ones, double stacked ones, be creative. And if you have seams to cover, these panels are the opportunity to do that. Base the whole thing in black, just cheap craft acrylic. Then, you could use a normal brush, but I use my airbrush. Apply a chaotic swirl of a dark green color. So it's not a full base coat, it's a deliberately irregular smattering. Cover all the surfaces of the building, vertical and horizontal. Then do the same with a medium green, but only for the floors. Leave the walls alone. And finally a third time with lime green. Again, leave the walls alone. And so you get this. Then I used a hex stencil, loaded some black into the airbrush, and began covering the top. So the result is this, kind of looks like green, glowing, radiating hexagons. Back to the walls, we're going to use our medium green again, but apply a heavy dry brush. You'll want to use a bigger brush, and allow the fibrous surface of the chipboard and all the weird shapes to do the work for you. It's pretty cool, it's like ancient green metal. Then onto a lime green color, another dry brush, but much lighter. Mostly just let the edges catch it. It's pretty cool, I like this look. Again, chipboard has a slightly fuzzy surface, and it does a lot of detail work for us just by being that way. Speaking of which, more chipboard! Cut a lot of 1/4 inch wide strips, and begin working your way around the floor perimeters, chopping them to size as needed. So these are going to be covering the ugly seam where the walls meet the floors. Paint them before attaching them. I used a metallic silver, gunmetal, whatever, and then hot glue them into place. This ensures that you have no chance of getting silver on the floors by mistake. Time to hot glue all the stairs in. Go ahead and do that. And it was at this point that I realized I forgot to film myself making the stairs. So here's a diagram showing how they're made. It's pretty logical. Use double corrugated cardboard, stack decreasing rectangles together, and clad the corrugation. Features to put together here. First, cut out 4 each of these 2 shapes. Hot glue them together to get this beacon lantern sort of thing. Tease hot glue all over it in a swirling pattern. and then hot glue on some thin cardstock strips to cover all the seams. I'd recommend just attaching them too long and then trimming them to size with scissors after attaching them. It's easier than measuring. So here we go with all the banding attached. Then some foam squares hot glued to the top and bottom. Base all those swirls in white. Then apply a solid coat of yellow, followed by a very patchy swirly application of a neon green. Base all of the banding in black and paint it up by dry brushing various greens, just like we did for the main building. Now I'm going to make use of my Proxen hot wire table, set it to a very slight angle, and run a block through it 4 times to get a nice beveled pedestal. Not shown did the same thing for this much taller, skinnier piece, and those both get the ancient green metal treatment as well. Now I attach them together with a toothpick and no glue. This is because in storage or when being transported, it's going to be a fragile feature, so I just pop it on the toothpick when it's time to play. I was really tempted to call it done. I mean, I was happy with it. But then I figured, well, let's try and make it look a little more weathered. So, pools of white glue placed strategically, flock with construction sand. Here it is after drying and after dumping the excess. Paint with burnt umber, slightly watered so that it sinks in nicely. And then a dry brush with tan. And lastly, just some plain black into the airbrush and hit all the corners to create some shadows and sort of blend the surfaces together a little better. And we're about to go to the table to look at the finished product, but real quick, some reminders. There's a link in the description below for my storefront. It has all the tools and supplies that I recommend. And for all you 3D printers out there, Wyloch's Crafting Vids is sponsored by Heroes Horde, which has an excellent range of high-quality models, including but not limited to all True Tiles lines, which are OpenLock compatible. Also, check out my modules over on the DM's Guild, and remember, $3 patrons get free copies of all my releases. Anyway, you can see the steps were chosen specifically so that those 32mm bases would fit. The whole thing's a pretty big piece. It's imposing. It makes for a good centerpiece. Things I'd do differently, maybe revisit the dry brush there at the end. Maybe use the dry brush and spray some errant brown and make it look a little dustier. Those patches look kind of isolated. And of course I had to do a weird stack up of different materials to get to the exact height I wanted. Again, that was for line of sight blocking, but 2-inch foam certainly would have been easier. If you liked this particular project, here's 2 more that you should go check out right now. Also, enjoy this month's community showcase. And don't forget to subscribe and click that bell reminder icon. I am Wyloch, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.